And we're live. Welcome to Clinical Conversations at High Noon with the Green Nurses at Holistic Caring Network, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We are truly here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. And I'm sure you've heard me say it quite a few times. I'd like to invite you to think of the acronym of H is for hope, I is for inspiration, G is for growth, and H is for healing. So here's a little bit about what we do in the community and in the cannabis nurse space and what we're going to be doing. Getting really exciting.
Change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship, and what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine. And I'm excited to really bring this into light. There's a company called Cannabis that we're merging with, and we will now be doing global education.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers.
Well, there you go. Growing in health, growing in cannabis. My name is Sherri, and I'm the Vice President of Nursing at Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse. I'm a cannabis nurse, patient, advocate, activist, and podcaster here to change the paradigm of healthcare with a team of amazing nurses and health professionals around the globe. So I'd like to introduce my business partner and co-host of our monthly clinical conversations, Elisabeth Mack. She is the CEO and founder of Holistic Caring Network, where the Green Nurses operate out of, and she is the clinical director of clinical affairs at Cannabis in Australia. And we are getting ready and getting organized and getting prepared to launch a new clinic, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah. Offering a free nurse line to help triage patients to help them get what they need. So, people are making great medicines and people are producing amazing cannabis formulations, yet no one is truly educating patients how to use cannabis as medicine. That's what we do. Right? So welcome, Elisabeth.
Thank you. Happy September. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
And,
well, I just love, help us change the paradigm of healthcare.
Yeah, what do I mean by that?
Yeah,
and I'm wearing the same shirt I wore in that video.
I know, it's a great shirt.
It's one of my favorites. To me, changing the paradigm of healthcare is expanding options so that patients not only have the traditional options, but also holistic options and things that, from a harm reduction standpoint might make more sense and be something that can change the game from pharmaceuticals and procedures and pills and procedures we'll talk about that maybe don't work as effectively as they need to, into plant medicine and other modalities to modulate our endocannabinoid system, which we'll talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So our September newsletter, if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, you need to subscribe because we are offering a 7-page free medical cannabis guide. So go to www.holisticcaring.com. And so our September newsletter was about harm reduction, how can we maximize how we take care of patients using cannabis and medicine as well as other plants to do no harm with those who are struggling with addiction? As registered nurses, many people ask us, is cannabis a drug of abuse or is it a wonder drug? Will I become dependent or addicted to it? I have a history of cannabis, or I have a history of substance abuse. There is such thing as cannabis use disorder, but patients will ask us, I have a history of substance abuse. I have a history of addiction. And will this be something that will affect my recovery or cause me to relapse? And these are really, really good questions. And so today we're going to dig into that topic and discuss how CBD and cannabis may be helpful as a harm reduction tool for recovery. So let's start by breaking down addiction and recovery. And I'm going to pull up some handy dandy slides here. All right, here we go. Slides. We got some slides. Aren't we lucky?
So
harm reduction.
Harm reduction. Yeah. So why talk about harm reduction with respect to addiction, right? Yeah. So addiction, as you have here on the slide, it's defined as a chronic relapsing disorder characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite adverse consequences. So you're physically impaired, emotionally affected, functionally, productivity, financially, etc. So you're using despite negative consequences. It is considered a brain disorder. So physical changes, structural changes in the brain, because it involves functional changes to brain circuitry and many of the circuits that are involved in reward, stress, and self-control. So the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and our dopamine centers and those centers that are causing us to seek and to crave, right? And you get in that loop where it's focused on finding that substance that is going to activate those switches
and to provide the relief, right? You think about people are seeking relief. So recovery, is a complicated path. You think about it, it's often with periods of abstinence and relapse where a person slowly begins to regain control of their life. And it requires alterations of thinking and behavior. It becomes a way of life. But there's also a lot of recovery programs that are very, very rigid. And does this support all people in all situations? And is there a way for us to do better as clinicians? So just like everyone has a different endocannabinoid system, everyone is hardwired differently when it comes to healing addiction. And we have to look at what the real dangers that exist. So Elisabeth, what is driving addiction?
Well, modern living, but yeah, right. I mean, Gabor Mate has a new book, The Myth of Normal. And our modern world causes us to have a lot of stress and that sort of thing. But, when we're talking about addiction, if we're going to focus on opioids, because that is our biggest crisis in America, the opioid use and epidemic, and it's been accelerating in the era of COVID. People are using more opiates than ever. In fact, from 12 of 2020 to 21 for the last year, 107,000 people died as a result of opioid overdose in America. And that was doubled since 2019.
Wow, that's a lot.
So it remains a public health crisis. And, people get into opiates for what reason? They've had an accident, they've had surgery that became complicated. And, the statistics are if you take opioids more than about a week or two, you're going to end up on them for 30 days. And those that end up on 30 days, it's 3 months. And then you can see where that goes. So some of the addiction pathways are driven by the opioid pills, and then people move to illicit drugs, and fentanyl, methamphetamine is also a big drug of abuse, as is cocaine. So
other thing too, and we're also starting to see conventional pharmaceuticals being abused as well. So if people aren't able to get what they need to manage their symptoms or manage the addiction because they're craving, they'll seek other pharmaceuticals and get prescriptions for those.
Yeah, and other pharmaceuticals like benzodiazepines and muscle relaxants, anything to take the edge off. But it's not just the drugs, right? There's other behaviors. Of course, we know about alcohol. People smoke excessively, a pack a day because they're anxious, nicotine, and then compulsive behaviors. People can have excessive shopping, surfing the net, social media, and other things. TV, you just go from the cubicle to the couch. We have many addicted ways to be, and we're trying to cope with the pressure of modern living. So
Let's go. We're going to go into
And
this
it's a
next.
costly disorder,
Yeah.
$740 billion a year.
And we covered the slide already that it's a chronic relapsing disorder, changes in the brain, functional changes in the brain, and recovery is a complicated path. Completely, it's a complicated for people. So, while cannabis is the most frequently used substance, addiction rates are at their lowest with those who use it, right? So let's talk about the slide, Elisabeth, and then we'll get into what harm reduction is. Kind of skipping around.
So in America, on average, about 21% of Americans are diagnosed with an alcohol use disorder or excessive drinking, binge drinking. There's all kinds of levels of that. 95,000 people die annually from alcohol. 14% of Americans overuse opioids, and 24% of those become addicted to them. 20% of Americans use tobacco, and most of those are addicted, and 480,000 die annually. So about 500,000 people are still lost each year from cigarettes. And 49% of Americans have used cannabis in the past year. And about 9 to 10% are the statistics for those diagnosed with cannabis use disorder, overuse, trying to use, despite some negative consequences. However, no one has ever died from a cannabis overdose because it's physically impossible. You can drink yourself to death, you can smoke yourself to death, and you can
drink
overdose
too much water and drown yourself to death.
You might, yeah. So, but physiologically, it's one of the safest substances that also has vast therapeutic purposes. So it really is one of the most safe and effective medicines on earth that is a botanical and accessible to anybody that can grow these plants.
Yeah. And I want to bring up to the cannabis use disorder thing because I talked about that before. So when you think about 9 to 10% of people may become addicted with cannabis or get that label of cannabis use disorder, we're actually looking at cannabis use disorder and the diagnostic criteria. So I want to give a big shout out to the cannabis nurse navigator perception coach, Nick Pichette, who is doing actually research and looking at cannabis use disorder and thinking of ways as to how we can really measure that and look at that, because it is very, very outdated and really doesn't look at the whole picture when we're talking about a substance. And here's the other thing too, when we're talking about Schedule 1, I think it's really important, and let me see if that's the next slide. Yeah, so here's the issue with Schedule 1.
Well, let's explain what Schedule 1 is.
Yeah, Schedule 1, here we go.
So Schedule 1 is in the Controlled Substance Act that was enforced in 1970. There's 5 schedules of drugs. From Schedule 1 is no medicinal benefits, highly addictive, dangerous, abusive, and you should never use them.
Mm-hmm.
And what is in Schedule 1?
Well, heroin, LSD, marijuana, mescaline, MDMA, psilocybin, just to name a few, right?
Yeah. So, cocaine is in Schedule 2. Benzodiazepines are in Schedule 4. So, yeah, it's interesting, right? So, marijuana, cannabis, medical cannabis is what we call it. It's got incredible. It's a medicinal treasure trove, right? We know that it's got therapeutic benefits across the board. In fact, we can talk about how CBD might also help the brain in calming down addictive pathways. And some of we can go back and look at some of the brain centers. But CBD is categorized wrongly into Schedule 1 and needs to be descheduled. The MORE Act in Congress would deschedule it. So contact your Congress people and ask them to pass the MORE Act this year. But we need to deschedule this.
Absolutely. And here's the reason why. I'm going to tell you a quick little story about a patient I took care of who was 18 years old when he came off of heroin. Mm-hmm. And so we did harm reduction, and we'll talk about what that looks like to help him get off of heroin. And when I was working with him doing coaching and consulting and following up to help him adjust his cannabinoids as he came off the substance, a lot of what we talked about was why. Why did you choose that substance? What was it about that substance that, that kind of gave you the inkling to try it? And he basically said to me something very powerful. He said, "Sherri, you're all liars." I said, "What?" He said, I'm not kidding. He said to us, in this consultation, he said, cannabis is on Schedule 1 with heroin. And cannabis is legal in states for medicine and legal in states for people to have fun. So heroin is on the same list as that. You lied about marijuana. So why wouldn't you lie about heroin?
Well, that's 18-year-old logic, huh?
So there you go. So in other words, his brain is not fried. He was thinking pretty clearly. So the interesting thing about this, 47%, you would look in Canada, okay? In Canada alone, it's federally legal in Canada. 47% of users replaced other substances with cannabis. Alcohol was reduced by 85%. That's huge. And 18% of people eliminated alcohol altogether. I hate alcohol shaming people, but it's really, really important when you're going to compare them. I can go system by system. I could look at all 11 organ systems, the neurotransmitters, and tell the difference. Alcohol is toxic to our body, all 11 organ systems and all the neurotransmitters. So when you think about when people come into recovery, they're broken. All of their organ systems, their immune system, and their neurotransmitter signaling systems are suffering, because they've been denied and they haven't been nourished. They've been having these substances in their body that have been wreaking havoc.
Well, and they've been sick, right? Yeah. People that are addicted have a lot of physical issues as well. And a lot of times, that was the treatment that they started treating in the first place. And, their body's just out of balance, right? Yeah. When we think about it, their body's out of balance. And, to this slide, this was the Canadian study. People are reducing medicines that are antidepressants. They're reducing benzodiazepines. They're reducing opioids and many other medications, seizures, sleep medications, the other anxiolytics, etc. And they drink less. So, on that study of the 85%, it was of the people that stopped drinking, 85% reduced their drinking. So cutting down the number of drinks, and a lot of people do that. They used to have 2-3 glasses of wine. Now they can have 1 or 2 and a couple of puffs. And what happens then when you're starting to reduce that? You're limiting your calories. You're limiting damage on your body and the toxic effects that you mentioned. People can smoke less. They can, when we're looking at using CBD. In the brain, it is calming some of those fight or flight centers. It is boosting serotonin. It is helping you feel better naturally. It is lowering inflammation, affecting the physiological states, and helping the body heal. So, when we're looking at using cannabinoids as a substitute for other substances, we have to think about what are those substances doing and what is cannabinoids doing, and how much bang for the buck are you really getting? And when you think about it, if you can reduce opioid doses with cannabinoids, it's a win, because you're lowering your risk of overdose. You're lowering the side effects of the opiates, the constipation, the drowsiness, the just dopiness, a lack of productivity, etc. And now you're also bringing in healing that is anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective, giving the anxiolytic and analgesic benefits that they might have needed, helping somebody sleep. Getting good restorative sleep, and just really moving people along on the health paradigm to health and wholeness, as opposed to illness and addiction. So that is our work, and it's not overnight. When I work with patients, weaning them down from opiates and other things too, it's a process, right?
Yeah,
and so we have to talk about that.
Yeah, we will.
Sorry, I've been rambling.
That's okay. No, it's all good. So let's just get a little bit into harm reduction and what that looks like. So harm reduction is actually substituting a less harmful drug for the one that is more lethal and dangerous, right? So harm reduction actually brings context and compares one path to the other, taking the one with the least harm. Okay, so that makes sense. So it doesn't, people need to understand that it doesn't eliminate all substances, but rather it helps us choose between option and removes judgment over using a substance that's going to help people to heal and to maintain their treatments and the care that they need. Right. So for example, right, instead of getting patients escalating doses of opiates because they're no longer effective, we can think about replacing an opiate dose with cannabinoids one at a time. Right. We can also use cannabinoids in conjunction together with prescribed opioids, or we can use them in between dosing times. So this is just an example. Another example is with that child that I took care of. He was less than 18. He was 16 when he came to me, getting him off of heroin. So what did we actually do? We put him on high dose of CBD, and believe it or not, we taught him how to dab. Okay, so concentrates and high dose CBD helped him to get off of heroin comfortably and decrease the amount of suffering that he had, and allowed him, we shifted and adapted and used cannabis plus other endocannabinoid system tools, right? To help him, to use this plant and use other things to get off of the heroin. So when we use harm reduction approach, it allows the person to feel more in control, right? You think about when people are addicted, they can't control it. They can't control their behavior. They can't control the substances. They have that urge. If medications are the first line treatment for addiction, we need to make sure that these drugs aren't harming us further by downregulating our endocannabinoid system. And when we're looking at polypharmacy, even with patients that we take care of, right? What does polypharmacy look like? Well, if you're taking 5 or more pharmaceuticals, there's a 50% chance that these pharmaceuticals are interacting with your body. If you're taking 10 or more, there's a 100% chance that these pharmaceuticals are interacting with your body, not in a way that is going to support you, right? And
so, better medication choices, having the harm reduction approach opens up the options. It opens up the toolbox, right? So we talk about other medications that could be less harmful, folding in cannabinoids so that we can do opioid dose reduction, so that we can wean some of the other things, and then adding in the other ECS modalities, and helping people from a sane approach, not an abstinence only. We talked about the rigidity of some of the other recovery programs, where it's just say no and you just turn it all off. And what happens? We have a lot of suffering people out there. In fact, September is also Suicide Awareness Month. And so, we need to promote all of the tools in our kits that we can promote well-being. So.
Well, and this is the other thing too, is, patients will come to us and they'll say, do I have to smoke it?
Well, that's one of the most pleasurable things, to be able to say, you don't have to be high. People have been stereotyped and stigmatized against cannabis because of federal prohibition for the past 100 years. Right. So they think that this plant, they're going to have psychotic episodes and breaks. They're going to go crazy. They're going to become addicted. They're going to lose control of their life. None of that happens when you use this in a controlled fashion with, mainly reliance on CBD and other minor cannabinoids and microdoses of THC as needed for pain, for anxiety, for sleep, for resolution of symptoms, that you put patients in the driver's seat, and now they have personalized healthcare. They've got something that is going to be targeted for them, and they learn how to have agency. And what does that promote? Well-being. I can do this. Yeah. And that breeds further, advancement every day.
And it gets them out of the pills and procedures, medical and pharmaceutical trauma that we're seeing in so many different patients. Yeah. So you don't have to inhale. You don't have to get high. There's nothing wrong. One of the side effects of using cannabis is feeling good, right? And everyone deserves to feel good. So there's many types of cannabis to use, routes of administration and cannabinoids. And what we always talk about too is, I used to say in my podcast is that there's 3 ways to use cannabis: medically, recreationally, and irresponsibly. But what I really like to say now is there's 2 ways to use it. You're either using it appropriately or you're not, right? Cannabis is either enhancing your life, your quality of life, or it's not. And so this is the way I like to look at it, right? Everyone deserves to feel good, and when we're talking about consumption, it's about education.
Yeah, and you mentioned recreationally, medically, but think about the ways you can use cannabis. You can take tinctures, you can use topicals, and we always talk about systemic activation of the endocannabinoid system, this umbrella system that overarches all of our other body systems and helps us fine-tune and stay healthy at the cellular level. When we're not creating these, when we're aging, when we're stressed, when we're sick, when we're compromised in any way, we have a deficiency. And supplementing with CBD brings us back to well-being. And we can do that mainly with tinctures, capsules, and then people that have had injuries, like my 3 shoulder surgeries, topicals every night, helps me relax, fall asleep, be out of pain, have better mobility, etc. So we can use cannabinoids for healing options without having to smoke anything. Unless you're in a jag and you need immediate resolution, you can vape and find relief. So it's a very flexible toolkit that we teach people how to maximize the benefits, minimize the harms.
Absolutely. The world is tense. COVID has forever changed our home and work environments, right? And so as troubling as it is, the potential for plant medicines to heal our world is very, very exciting. So we can help you take a harm reduction approach and a viewpoint and help you to approach cannabis and other progressive therapies to help you live a better quality of life. So when we're working with patients, it's either, do you want to bridge the gap from what you're not getting from conventional medicine? Do you want to work on getting, reducing your pharmaceuticals? Are there any substances that you want to come over? Or are you looking for cannabis for wellness? So we'll help you take a harm reduction viewpoint and approach cannabis and other progressive therapies, to help find freedom.
Yeah, it's not an all or nothing. We're complicated people as humans, and from pediatrics to geriatrics, we can influence health and well-being around the globe. And our telehealth platform allows us to see patients wherever they are around the country and even globally. Our online programs allow us to share these beautiful ideas in a deep dive fashion. So, for instance, I have a program that we wrote on mental health and wellness. It's in the patient programs on the website, and holistic wellness and CBD. How do I take a global look at my health and well-being using cannabinoids, modulating the endocannabinoid system, where we explain what that is and how these phytonutrients bring us back to balance, like taking a vitamin D supplement, and giving you back your well-being and balance in the body. And then how to couple that with other lifestyle modalities, how to eat the right things, how to take care of the gut, how to really restore body, mind, spirit well-being using other tools and tips for that, as well as, just looking at yourself as not just a body. You're not just a body. And a lot of times people get stuck, right? Because they think they are their condition and they have to have these pills for that condition, and they become defined by that. And when we sit down and do a consultation with somebody, it's, what do you want to accomplish? What are you struggling with? And how can we help you really bridge the gap between what you're not getting in the conventional system and putting yourself in the driver's seat again, so that you can start to steer yourself back to health.
Yeah, everyone deserves to feel good. Right? Everyone deserves to feel good. And so we're going to wrap up this amazing clinical conversations. Let's just do a quick little, we did this.
Cells?
Yeah, let's talk about, I just put in the comments there, everyone, I just put in some links. So like I said, Elisabeth wrote these amazing program. So Cannabis Health Coach Program, 50% off, Nurse 50.
Yeah, I didn't talk about that one. So for all the healthcare professionals out there, this is written for nurses and health coaches, but all licensed professionals can benefit from this. It is the most comprehensive program that we have. Literally, it goes through all of the fundamentals of cannabis and the therapeutic option that we have, all of the different conditions with the research of, how we traditionally treat that, as well as how cannabinoids might help, and then dosing strategies around those. And then all of the industry and coaching and legalities for patients, professionals, etc., and all of the business opportunities that are out in the cannabis industry now. So that Nurse 50 will give you 50% off that program. So it's only $375 this month, which is quite a deal. And then the 50% off the holistic wellness and CBD, that's a wonderful option as well. And then we have some medicines out there, right? So
yeah, we did. There's in the comments, we have a CBD marketplace for those that are new and watching. If you go to the website and click shop, in the shop is where all the programs are for patients and professionals, as well as our CBD marketplace. So as nurses, as not only are we nurses, we're cannabis nurses, but we're also medical cannabis patients. We've been doing this for a long 16 years between us. So we know good medicine and we know bad medicine, and we've been vetting products and services from across the globe. So in our shop, we have a couple of new stores in there. And so you can take a peek of them at them. We have Bloom Hemp has 10% off using Green Nurse and you get free shipping.
Nice.
Irie Bliss Wellness is back in our shop. They're amazing. They're right out of Rockland and Weymouth, Massachusetts. Same thing, Green Nurse for free shipping. And then there's a new protein powder that I'm really excited about that's actually out of New England as well. It's called Maya Life. and it's has a CBD in it, and it's all vegan with adaptogenic mushrooms and other types of plant protein. Really, really good.
Yeah. Just gives you a boost of energy and well-being with those mushrooms and focus, and 25 milligrams of CBD per shot. I love that shake.
And then Blue Buddha. We have to do a big shout out to Robin Swan. So we've got Blue Buddha that is also a new shop.
Yeah. She's been making CBD oils for the last 30 years, but we finally got her in the shop on the beautiful Blue Buddha CBD, as well as Fire Kitty oil, which is the topical I use on my shoulder every night. So, lots of good stuff. And, what does vetted mean? We have the certificate of analysis. We know the quality, the potency, the safety profiles, that to make sure that there's no contaminants in these medicines. And so that we really know what's in the bottle, that it's safe and effective, and that we can dose it responsibly for you to give you consistent, reliable results all the time. So we want to make sure that we're helping you do business with people that are going to also be transparent in their practices and fair and have good customer service. So all of that matters.
All of it matters. So make sure you visit us at holisticcaring.com. So this has been an amazing clinical conversation, harm reduction. We are going to be doing some more podcasting in the next couple of weeks. I have some very exciting guests that are going to be coming on. I'm looking to have Robin come on, Robin Swan from Blue Buddha, because she has an amazing story. Her family has been in the business for a very long time, and she's got some great stuff to share.
She was raised by an alchemist. Her father is American Indian. Her mother was Persian, and they really blended all of these cultural influences. But the family has been in cannabis and other herbal extracts for eons. Yeah. So it's, and that's the beauty of this, right? We get to learn from people that have been in the trenches for years and years, and find out what those best practices are. Well, how the plant really works.
Speaking of the trenches, who did we talk to the other day?
Oh my goodness.
You guys ready for this?
We met Lumir Hannes, the gentleman scientist who found anandamide. He was the one that isolated and broke down the molecular structure. And we got to meet Lumir Hannes the other night. In fact, you can see the Lumir Clinic logo up there. It's a work in progress. That's not the final logo, but we're having a lot of fun as we prepare to launch the Lumir Clinic.
So for people that are new to anandamide, one of the things, we have an endocannabinoid system, not because of the cannabis plant, but because we make molecules in our body like the plant. So the plant makes THC, we make anandamide, and the molecular structure is very similar, goes in and does the same thing, unlocks the door to that neurotransmitter signaling system. So the anandamide molecule is the molecule that Professor Lumir Hannes has isolated. And so we're really, really lucky to have him be on our board of directors and a medical advisory board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I when I think about anandamide, it's the key. It's the key into the brain, into that central nervous system, to activate those receptors, open that lock, open that flow to balance and proper control of neurotransmitters and brain function and central nervous system, and to reduce pain and to reduce all of that suffering, right? Anandamide. And Ananda is Sanskrit for bliss, which is why they called it anandamide.
That's it.
Because it does promote bliss and well-being.
It does. And what I learned from Denise Costello is this beautiful little mantra, and I generally start this before my presentations or before, is peace begins with me. Inhale, Ananda. It's just a nice deep breath, to remember that you can breathe in oxygen. We're breathing in the plant, the spirit of plant medicine. Breathe in that bliss and know that when you take that deep inhale, that this is going to be working on multiple different systems all at the exact same time to bring you new levels of wellness so you can do what? Live your best life and help others do the same. So thank you for joining us. We're going to end with one of our other favorite videos, and we'll be putting up some events in the next couple of days for our next upcoming podcast. So remember, everyone, it is about living your best life and helping others do the same. Thank you for joining us.
We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And you know, the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.